Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses here today. You know, as the only PhD scientist in the U.S. Congress, I have to say that I'm sort of disappointed with today's hearing. The job of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee is supposed to be oversight of the federal government's research and development agenda. So I'm rather disappointed that instead of having a serious conversation about how to analyze and mitigate the effects of climate change, we are talking about subpoenas and legal arguments involving shareholder fraud investigations by states' attorneys general. Instead of learning about the next generation of batteries or discussing how to ensure that the U.S. stays on the leading edge of scientific discovery and innovation, we're here arguing about subpoenas that have been issued unilaterally and, I believe, irresponsibly by the majority party that controls this committee. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I am a scientist and a businessman. And as a businessman, I understand that a company's management has a real duty to inform its investors in a timely manner when it becomes aware of dangers that put the financial viability of its products at risk, in exactly the way that a drug company must inform its investors in a timely manner when, for example, its research uncovers a significant side effect or dangers from a drug that it is developing or marketing. To do anything less is fraud, and the investigations into potential fraud by states' attorney general is simply doing their job. Well, I cannot speak with authority on the legal and jurisdictional hairs that we're splitting here today. I can speak on the scientific ones. There is no doubt that the fossil fuel industry is carrying on its books trillions of dollars of proven reserves, and there is no doubt that the scientific reality of fossil fuel-induced climate change calls into question their ability to economically extract these assets. And because of the real issues here, to me, are not just legal and jurisdictional ones. They're scientific and, in fact, political. And whether or not this hearing ends up being just another gigantic waste of time and taxpayer money depends really on how the science underlying global warming lands. This hearing, to my mind, is just another example of a rearguard action by a group of people who do not accept the facts of climate change and are abusing their positions in the majority to undertake hearings that will, in fact, end up being a giant waste of taxpayer money. It's long past time that this committee accepts the scientific facts of climate change, like the vast majority of scientists have, and take on the very serious work of figuring out where we go from here as a country and as an economy. This is the challenge of our lifetime. And now if I could make a small effort to try to actually return to a scientific point here. Professor Rotunda, I was fascinated by what seemed to be your support of an argument that the Greenland ice sheet would melt and thereby lower the sea level. And I was wondering if you can expound on how exactly the physics of this works.
Well, yeah, I'll try to summarize. I gave you the citation for the article, and I'll summarize, I think, what the Harvard professor said. Ice has mass. Mass has gravity. When the ice sheet melts, all the gravity that was then part of the island of New Greenland disappears into the ocean, just goes away. And that ice has been pushing Greenland down, and now Greenland will be moving up, because the water is all over the place. He said that Netherlands should be more worried about the Antarctic ice rather than the Arctic ice. Now, as you can read it all,
so you believe
that
when Greenland ice sheets melt, there will obviously be a local effect where the land will pop up, where the load of the ice sheet
He said 2,000 kilometers away, up to 2,000 kilometers away.
But overall, the effect, just from general principles, has to be to significantly raise water levels worldwide.
Well,
unless there's new physics I'm not aware of, I think that's sort of fundamental.
Read his article. I mean, that's what he says.
Now, this was a peer-reviewed journal, or?
The article is summarizing his research, which was in peer-reviewed journals. I read it in the translation form in the Harvard magazine, and they're doing an article about him. And he said that he liked doing the Pliocene age because it was far away and not subject to this controversy. As he studies this, he discovers it has an effect today. He puts his math in his papers, which were peer-reviewed and published. This is an article about the review. In fact, you illustrate the the problem of scientists. Say, he can't believe this, that can't be right, so we should investigate. In fact, we have this strange world that when...
Has he come under any
Excuse me, I have to
pressure?
finish the sentence. When the House of Representatives sends a subpoena to non-government NGO groups, that's chilling. When the state attorney general sends the subpoenas to NGOs and threatens criminal prosecution, that's
Okay, no,
fine.
I'm trying to answer a scientific question.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it just seems amazing that the overall water levels would change in the direction that you seem to
For
believe it would.
2,000
if-
kilometers. After that,
Oh, you're talking about the local depression, but it will be
Well-
a big problem for the rest of the world if the Greenland ice sheet.
well, I mean, it's not going to be a problem. for
Anyway, I am
Europe.
now, I guess, past my time here, and at some point, I'd like to return to science in this committee, and thank you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you,
your
Mr.
question.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to raise something that ought to be obvious to everybody on the committee about this. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8